probably ask your permission for me to do that, I'm guessing.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back live with the Louis B. Free radio show, Brain Food from the Heartland. I am delighted to have as my guest, Clare O'Sullivan. Clare, good morning to you. Welcome. Or good afternoon to you. I'm sorry. It's
well,
mid-afternoon.
It is afternoon here in Gloucestershire in England. Yeah.
It's beautiful there, correct?
Absolutely beautiful. Yeah, I love it.
What kind of day are you having?
Well, it's slightly cloudy, but I did go for a little walk and I saw, you know, the acorns are coming out in the oak tree. That's not every year that happens. Could just see the little babies coming out, and there's squirrels around there as well. And I'm going, you guys, you know, this autumn is going to be such a celebration, you know. So it's just beautiful. The weather, I mean, I'm Irish, so the weather doesn't really matter, you know.
You know, and I agree with you about the weather, because I like where I'm at, we get all 4 seasons. So of course, sometimes the saying is we can have all 4 seasons in 1 week, which it's been, you know, it would be like we'd have snow one day, and then a couple of days later it would be almost 70 degrees, you know, Fahrenheit. Yeah. So we can get it all, but I like the change of seasons and I enjoy all of them.
Yeah. Now I don't live in Ireland anymore. And part of that was because of the wet, you know. So when I moved to Gloucestershire, it's so much drier, and people here complain about the weather, you know, when it's too wet and everything, going, you've no idea.
Yeah, right. You know, it's interesting how people always, I hate to say people, too general, but many people are always complaining about the weather. It's too hot, it's too cold, it's too, or the sun's beating down on me, it's rain. And I love when it rains. Not torrential rain. And I've learned a really great word, Clare O'Sullivan, a few years back, pluviophile. A pluviophile is somebody that really loves the rain or the sound of rain or watching rain. And my neighbors know when it starts raining, I'm out the front door with, you know.
Just wonderful. Just it's so alive.
It. Yeah.
Yeah. And I sat here the other day and I had the door open and it raining outside. That's one of my favorite things to do because the atmosphere and the smells and it's very special.
See, you're probably like a pluviophile. It's a great word, and I love saying it because it's like, you're a what? You're a what? Well,
that's a label I don't mind having.
That's a label I don't mind having also. I want to talk a little bit about how I want to get into a lot of things that you do.
Okay.
senseoflife.co.uk. We've got the links up, but
thank you.
A little bit, we connected through Tara Shannon. I asked her, she would get both. Her dad would call her Tara when she was on with me, and I think her mom would call her Tara, because I said, which is it? She said, either or both are fine. And that's where we connected. And she does rabbit and bear.
That's right.
Yeah. So tell us what you recall about us connecting, Clare.
Well, with that, you know, when I met Tara's work, I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
There's, you know, there's so little really around for us about how to navigate grief, you know.
Yeah.
And she's doing it through art and simplicity. But she had to travel the absolute depths, and I'm sure still does, of the effects of that in her body and her mind and soul. She had to go there, you know. And she talks about rabbit and bear going into the dark and coming back out with the light, which is exactly, of course, what she's doing. So I just love that, and I wonder as well if, you know, the internet has given introverts more of a chance to become visible, you know, for this quiet work that we whittle away at, and suddenly we're becoming visible online. So I think it's a very good thing.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
Well, that's it, really. You interviewed Tara.
Yes.
And that's how we met. So I started following you as well. And then you met me in a way.
Yes.
When I put a post out that said, I just had the experience of so much love for myself, in myself. You know, I don't have it often, but I feel it's such a strong wave, and I wanted to celebrate it, you know. And a couple of people message back to say, I have no idea what that is, And Louis, the tragedy of that really, that we're so far removed from any sense of ease and our own beauty and our own essence,
I love that. I'm so glad that we connected. So I want to talk a little bit about your past. And if you go to the website, senseoflife.co.uk, I've got a lot of, I don't know if you could see it. So my sheets all marked up. All my sheets are marked up. But I want to talk a little bit about your background, a survivor of childhood domestic violence.
Yes.
Do you mind talking about
Not at all.
Thank you.
Not at all.
Go ahead.
I met the term cycle breaker actually when I joined Twitter properly. And I was very relieved to hear it. I call myself a cycle breaker of ending violence. And I was glad of it because it's such hard work not to do what my father did. It's such hard work to begin to love the trauma and the impact that had on me so that I don't repeat it in fight, So, cycle breaker. My father was a violent alcoholic, and I thought my mother would die at his hands, and I wasn't sure would my siblings or me die at his hands. So, what I just love about compassion is I feel I really trust that it's innate in us. So even as a little one, when my father had calmed, and maybe we're all leaving the house the next day because we left and came back. And a couple of times he took my hand and begged me to stay. I don't know why, but he felt some connection with me. And my heart just overflowed with compassion for this man who just destroyed so much of my childhood, and I love that possibility in humans that even in that state that we're innately born to go, oh gosh, this human's in so much pain and I love him and he's ruining my life at the same time. Holding these events in our lives with both and incredibly painful, incredibly impactful, and the path it can give you with compassion and with growth maybe.
Claire, where do you think that comes from in you? Because again, when I was reading that about how, and how a violent alcoholic, and you're right, my father was a violent alcoholic and I loved him so much and wanted him to love me.
Yes.
That's a incredibly, sorry, I get very emotional, but it's a very powerful statement.
Yes.
He's violent and you're in fear.
That's right.
A lot. You don't know when, and correct me if I'm wrong, you don't know when he's going to explode. You don't know.
No, that's right.
So you're pretty much living in fear a lot.
Yeah.
Yet you're right. And I've had some childhood issues. I didn't get this way with functional, normal parents, but I do understand to some degree. But when you say I loved him so much and wanted him to love me.
Yes.
That's, again, I'm repeating, but that's so powerful.
Yeah. See, Louis, I think this is our natural way of being. We arrive into the world in this way, in this form, in this sort of wholeheartedness. And then we meet violence. And it's been going on for centuries, Louis. It's not new to us. Been chopping each other's heads off, haven't we, for years? And it's still happening on our planet now. But I still believe that we are innately wholehearted, vulnerable, loving humans who just haven't had the holding, the empathic holding, the empathic wisdom that helps us to continue to live that way. And instead we have to shut down, in order to belong, in order to protect ourselves, to stay within this violent situation, just so we don't die, our caregivers. And so, my work and my life has been about bringing a warmth and an empathy to all those layers in myself so that who I am can still flow sometimes, and so that I'm a conduit for love as well, hopefully for life. Not although in my work, of course, that's what I do, but a bee visited a couple of days ago in this little flat of mine, and I'm going, oh, listen, I'm chatting away to him going, you're not going to find out in here, you're indoors. You might want to go back out the door. And I just felt very moved by the absence of food for the bee. And I wrote a tweet about that, actually. I often just follow the flow on Twitter. I love being on there. And when I finished that tweet to say, there's not enough food for the bees, plant what you can, was what I said. And then the bee landed on my table right next to me and was just sort of hovering and moving slightly. And I just had this beautiful conversation. I felt so much love, so much interconnectedness. So for me, this is the path of compassion as I've learned it, and I can tell you more about that, that as we soften ourselves, we can receive more life, so we're more fine-tuned, and then it's not possible for us to be violent anymore. I don't know if that all makes sense to you, Louis.
Can I tell you, Clare O'Sullivan, actually, to out myself, I've had similar experiences, and it makes 100% sense to me. I will tell you, if a fly gets in the house, I obsess about trying to get it back out because I know it's going to die in there, and I see no reason to just kill it, just because. And I have my method where I have a jar that I put over, it's on a window, and a little thin piece of cardboard I get underneath and get them outside. And I was talking with a friend of mine about a week ago, and I said, hold on, I got to catch a fly.
Yes.
I came back, he said, you needed to do what? I said, there was a fly in the house. He said, and you catch them? And I said, when I can, of course. Yeah. And then he made some comments about my state of mind. But I've also had experience with bees that, again, to be totally open, where I had an experience where a bee came by and woke me up about something. It was something I was thinking. I feel 100%. I feel 100%.
Yeah.
That's what happened. I was in a negative mindset.
Yeah.
And the bee buzzed me and kind of was there. And so I can relate.
Yeah. Louis,
I do understand that.
Yeah. I guess what I've been through, what I live, and what I offer others is this softening of these protective layers we have to build that opens us back out into life. And it's hard for me to teach it, and for anyone to sign up in a way, because of course we've got to go back in. We've got to bring our awareness back to the pain, just bit by bit. And soften it bit by bit. But that's the gift. I've been caught in cycles of, pain and grief, and there'll just be, some kind of visitation from the natural world that says, Claire, you've forgotten we're here. I was standing under a beech tree the other day, and the noise and the wind, and it was just a light wind and the shuffle of the leaves, and it's going, Claire, I'm here, don't you?
That's beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. I've got to mention this because I love this statement that you also made, and it's on of course, your website, senseoflife.co.uk. I'm the happiest girl in the world if I have an animal in my arms, and I'm 100% with you. Not the happiest girl, obviously, but I'm extremely, extremely happy if I'm holding a cat, a dog, a rabbit, whatever. I feel so much more peace. Connection.
Louis, as I've softened myself, resensitized myself, so I'm becoming more sensitive, and of course our culture asks us not to be. So I really don't belong now. It becomes harder and harder to sort of live here. So being with humans gets harder and harder for me on a sort of intimate, close level. But with the natural world, with the other than human world, my whole body opens out. This is the sort of natural living that I think is innate for us, that is our natural heritage. And, it just must be such a blessing if any of us can get back to it at any point in our lives,
And when you say that, I know that I've said this a lot on the show. A number of years ago, I had said, empathic people that have a lot of empathy, people want to know us, but they don't want to be us. And I thought, well, because it's, you can go from, into great pain. As I've thought about it over the years, Clare O'Sullivan, I thought I'd like it to be a little bit more under control. The older I get, the less control I have with that.
Okay.
Yet I wouldn't want to be devoid of those feelings.
No.
I wouldn't want those to be,
No.
I wouldn't want to be absent of those. Like I say,
No.
I kind of would like to see a little bit more balance sometimes
I
for
know.
me.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, Louis, you know, me too. It's a painful life. Oh my God. But it often happens to me when I work with somebody or I'm about to meet somebody that has sort of shared reality with me, I see something in nature that I can relate to and share. So I watched two magpies just 2 doors down with their baby, and I watched a crow come and try and catch the baby to eat it. And I found it incredibly painful to watch. And so I walked towards the birds to try and intervene a bit, just with my body, hoping the crow would go away and leave the poor little thing alone. You know, that was nature doing what it needs to do. But I came indoors and I couldn't watch anymore. I came indoors, I sat on my bed and I cried with the pain of it. And I went, okay, I've got to acknowledge that this reality in the natural world is painful for my body to be around. I want to honor that. So I don't like it, of course, and it's hard, but I allowed the tears to flow. And then I felt relief. So I'm present, I'm watching the truth, I'm allowing it to flow through me. It's the truth of how life is. And then I sort of get up, a bit like, you know, when a child falls and hurts their knee, and hopefully is sort of held by their granny or somebody, and then just go, look at honey, it'll be all right in a minute. Almost like I'm doing that for myself, that goes, I know this is difficult. I love you. I know you want to be here and fully here. So the words that came through my mouth at that time were, I want to feel, you know, I know the richness of it. And I know how hard it is to be human and watch, you know, that's only a tiny example, isn't it, of violence in the world.
Yeah. I do understand that also. I wrestle with that myself when I see, you know, hawks or, you know, and go. My neighbors also know when the squirrels are out, I'll run out and chase hawks. I mean, I know they've got to, but I can't, you know, I saw one with a squirrel once. And it was just, it's stuck in my mind. And again, I understand that's the natural order.
Of course.
And I know it's happening. I just would prefer not to witness it because that gets stuck in my head. I want to talk a little bit more about how you do that, your work about resensitization of humans through self-compassion.
Yes.
Talk with me a little bit about that, if you would. Okay.
So the foundation of, I have a few foundations in my work, but the main one is Marsha Rosenberg's work. It's called Nonviolent Communication or Compassionate Communication. What bothers me a bit about that title is, for me, it's about so much more than communication. It's about softening the layers of our consciousness, our language, and our thinking that stops the flow of love through us and towards one another. And the ground that he found for that was needs. So that's the basis of my work. And it became one of, you know, I have so many questions about my childhood, but one of the relieving answers was, okay, my father was trying to meet a need. Only he came from this ancestral heritage of violence. His own father was a violent alcoholic, and I don't know how far back. And his only way to manage the fight in himself when the pain rose was to hit out. All the while he was meeting a need to be heard, to be seen, to be understood. His strategy was off, and his strategy was one that destroyed everybody around him. So this, I can't quite recall the question, but the self-compassion through, what was the question? Can you remember, Louis?
But how do you do that resensitization through self-compassion?
Okay, so that this is the how.
Yeah, the process, if you would.
Yeah, so it helps me to give an example, Louis, if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
But, so I live in this very simple flat, and this guy keeps parking his big white van outside my front door. Now, all my windows are blocked up, they're double glazing and they're a mess. I can't see out. And so month after month, this guy's parking and blocking the only one way I have to see out. And I asked him once if he'd be willing to park somewhere else. And it didn't really happen after that. And I said, okay. And more I could feel the sort of panic in my body, not being able to see out. And so he did it again. And I thought, okay, it's time. So I held in myself my need for spaciousness, for ease, for connection to the outer world, all these needs inside my body. And the fear of showing up, the fear of asking a stranger to support my needs, you know. So anyway, he arrived and I thought, okay, this is it, Claire. You're going to have to show up. You're going to have to become visible if you want change. So I opened the door and I said, excuse me, I wonder if you might be willing to park your van just slightly down below my door so that when I opened the door, I could see out and I could see his face, and he got frustrated. And I said, look, I can imagine when you come home from work, all you want to do is just park with ease and not have somebody talking to you about it. He said, oh my God, the parking. So sick of it. I said, I really get that. So he handed me a free newspaper, and then he got back into the van, drove it back a little bit and left my space free. And he's left it free ever since. Wow. A neighbor 2 doors up did the same thing, and he just waved his hands at her and he doesn't want to talk to her. Louis, what I'm going to just suggest is the difference is that I was working with the needs. I was working with the urgency in those needs, and I held responsibility for those as I spoke to him. And I held responsibility for he may or may not be able to support my needs, and I need to hold that conscious as well. So there's no demand in me. And I believe that that's what enabled, it won't always, but it did in that moment, enabled him to see me as a human. So I wonder if that describes the process, that if we hold our pain around our unfulfilled needs in the moment, and all the ways we weren't seen and heard in the past, so it's all in the same mix. And then where needed, to show up with a request held lightly, that to ask somebody to support our needs. But when I do that, Louis, I'm holding the ancestry as well of all the violence, you know, all the ways Dad showed up going, I don't give a shit about anybody else's needs. I'm about to raise some fuss here. So at the root of it is not only my needs, but everybody's needs matter. His needs matter. My needs matter. No. How's that for a description?
It's incredible. When you think about your father and how he was raised.
Yes.
And I'll say, you know, my father also, not the alcoholic part, but and he would say, you know, you're lucky you didn't grow up with my father because it was worse. And then you wonder why someone would continue that, because it had to be horrible for my father and your father being raised like that.
Yes.
Yet that because there's no that they continue that knowing what it's like to be raised like that.
That's right. You know, Louis, I love my father, and I don't know what goes on in the other world, but I have such a strong sense that he is guiding me 100% in my work from where he is. Wow. I love him for the essence of who he is and was. And I get that he wasn't nurtured, and there's no way that he could wake in the consciousness that I woke for myself, that where I was able to stop. Now, Louis, I'm sure I didn't stop it in all the threads of my life by any means, but something in my gift that I was slightly further down the line of violence, also surrounded by new awareness in our times as well, you know, about trauma. Having been around after Marsha's work came on the earth too, about needs, you know, I was very blessed with teachers. You know, my mother, when she went for help in the situation, was told by her priest, go home and honor your husband, you know. Wow. That was the culture then. And I don't know what would have happened, Dad, probably be locked up, I suppose, in some terrible kind of way. There wasn't the resources. So I'm in a time where there's resources for me and I can resource myself to break the cycle. Dad didn't have anything, you know. So I understand that he couldn't stop it. And, you know, obviously people spoke to him, but he wasn't able to stop the trauma in his body from being so agonizing that all he could do was just fight, you know.
And you feel that he's helping guide you now.
Well, I didn't think he would be. I thought, that guy,
Yeah.
he's going to go over that threshold and he's got some rake of work to do and we won't hear from him for a long time, you know. But actually, I don't know how it works over there. And I can only say that if I try to do anything without calling on his presence, my body won't relax. It doesn't relax very easily anyway, but I go, okay, Dad, I'm going on the radio in Ohio somewhere, you know, you got to get behind me here because this is a complete unknown, you know. And then I really do sense all the ancestors, my mother, you know, her side of the family, very soft, very beautiful, all seeing me, all holding me. And the funny thing is, Louis, I'm estranged from all of my family. That's another subject.
Wow.
But the other day when I was working, I just, okay, I'm leaning back into any support. This is difficult for me. And all of my siblings showed up. And they're not dead. But I sense that there's an essence in all of us that's just so beautiful, so filled with hope, you know, that they were there too. I sense them too, even though I can't be with them physically.
That's beautiful. I'm talking
okay.
So it is.
Well,
it is. You know, it's so powerful. It's so powerful. Again, senseoflife.co.uk. I want to talk about the website in just a little bit. You also write about we've come to fear that inner experience.
Yes.
But you also write about the 8th sense of neuroception.
That's right. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, had you heard of that, Louis?
I had not.
Well, you see, isn't that interesting?
It's very interesting. You know, I get the neuro, you know, I understand how the word is formed, you know, but I never heard it before. I kept looking at it thinking, what is it? Why don't I know this word?
Well, I know. Louis, I've been doing what I realize is embodied work with needs for some time, and I haven't met it. And I'm going, thank you, because I know I'm using this sense all the time. Thank you. Here's the name. Louis, I think there's an ingredient I need to speak about that is some people talk about being with our feeling life so that we, you know, it's become an enemy image. These feelings that are very difficult to hold, they're connected with what we call negative inner critic. And sometimes there are teachers who talk about pushing it down, getting rid of. So with neuroception, what for me is the key ingredient is it's pointing to a need. Every time our body is activated in this sense, it's going, are you checking in with your needs? It's very basic, but we're unconscious of it because we've been educated away from it. So I did a webinar recently where I used the meerkat as an example because we're a mammal, you know. And I just said, just look, we're the meerkat, and the meerkat is standing up really tall. I don't think the meerkat's hypervigilant. The meerkat is standing in its full knowing and its full receptivity going, it's my job today to look after the gang. We're using the same system to check our needs, the same as the meerkat. But it's this needs-based intelligence that's missing. And needs-based means my needs and the bee's needs and the fly's needs, therefore, are interconnected. So that's why I want to hold it quite precious that my work is connected to cultivating peace all around, not just inside me and maybe with someone I'm working with or someone I'm having difficulty with, but with all life.
Beautiful. I'm talking with Clare O'Sullivan. You're listening to the Webe Free Radio Show, Brain Food from the Heartland. We've got links up to Clare's site, and it is senseoflife.co.uk, senseoflife.co.uk. Let's talk a little bit about your website and the work that you do with people.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit more about that, if you would, Clare.
Yeah. So that phrase, shaping what's troubling you into what's possible, I want to honor David Whyte, poet and philosopher, which is where that came from. Do you like his work?
Oh, no.
Louis, I'd be lost without him. Lost.
Oh.
Anyway, So that's his phrase, but the beautiful thing is it describes perfectly what I do. So we don't longer need to go over and over and over what happened to us in the past, regurgitating.
Yes.
It's exhausting. Our story will be part of our present, absolutely. But shaping what's troubling you through needs perhaps that aren't fulfilled in the present moment empowers you in the present moment through the felt sense, because you can only know what you need by connecting with your bodily senses, neuroception. It's an intuitive thing. Through that, you're empowered in the present moment, straight away in the present moment. So the first need that was named for me was harmony. Well, I didn't even know what a need was. And I looked at the teacher that was with me and I said, you mean it's okay to want harmony? I was working in a huge organization that was killing me, and the people in it were killing me. I was probably killing them, and I said, you've got to be kidding me. It's okay to want harmony. And she said, yes, natural. It's universal. We all long for harmony. So this is what, about my work is just so great, is that, yes, what happened to you will come up, the trauma that happened to you. And I work with people in the present. So something like in that moment, I guess you were longing for safety, protection, self-expression. And this brings the person into their present moment where we can talk about their present life and what they want to bring about. And as soon as you are connected to needs, you're connected to life empowering strategies. And the great thing is strategies that involve everybody and everybody's needs. Is this making sense, Louis?
Absolutely, Claire. Absolutely.
Oh,
good. When you say that, and I've said this maybe too many times on the show, when you say about regurgitating that, and I've been very open with my audience. I was sexually abused when I was a child, and years later, when I started to recall some of the memories, and which explained some of my behavior as a teenager and young adult, it was suggested that I go to this, it was called the Help Me group. And it was a licensed therapist that ran it. And it sat around and they'd go person to person to tell what happened to them. Yes. And people would hug, people would cry. And I came to me and I told my story. And then a few weeks later, I realized that they were doing this like every time. And they said, Louis, please share your story. I said, I already did. No, I didn't say it disrespectfully. I said, everybody knows. And well, please tell us again. I'd rather not. Again, I was very respectful. I didn't want it to sound like I was popping off at the licensed therapist that ran the group. I did not see the benefit. People would cry, they'd come over and hug me. And it was the same. And I realized that when I would leave these groups, I felt, I hate to say worse than when I went in, because it was almost like everybody was re-traumatizing themselves. Yes. So I get what you're saying about regurgitate, you don't, for me, there wasn't any benefit in it.
Yeah. And Louis, I think that's because, well, as a mammal, we just want to live our lives. We just want to get on with it. We've been through shit, you know?
Yeah.
But, oh God, is it not time now for me to really live my life? My story is part of me, but it's not everything.
It doesn't define you. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, there it is. And it certainly becomes part of what we're doing every day. Of course, it informs it. But the retelling, I think our body is always just waiting for and these younger parts of us are going, we've got the story. Now, are we going to play? Are we going to build our lives today in some way, even with that story in the background? I guess the longing for growth, movement, bringing our essence through that was before it all happened to us,
You must get great satisfaction when you see the light bulb, if you will, go on with people or the growth. Clare O'Sullivan.
Yeah, I do. I caught it the other day working with somebody. I think what And I take no claim to this being my good idea at all. This is based on so many people. What I do is just I've spent over a decade building it in myself, you know. The key word I'd say, Louis, is people feel relief. I can see it on their bodies. They go, oh gosh, yes, that's what I'm longing for. And I go, right, super, great. You know, if that's what you're longing for, let's talk about that now in your life. You know, what would bring that about for you? Yeah.
Go ahead. So
Well, that's it. It just gets very practical after that. Maybe another image I'd like to give is, again, it's a series of talks David White's doing at the moment, Sunday talks. And he bought an Irish fiddle when he was in Ireland recently, and he watched the man that was making it. And he watched the man's hands were shaking, and he was saying to himself, you know, how on earth can this guy make a fiddle? When he saw the guy doing it, he had the implement and his hands stopped shaking when he got contact with the wood.
Wow.
And he made this magnificent piece of art, you know. So I found it a beautiful description because, of course, me and anybody I work with has been through hell. Most of us have been. But we are creating a work of art that when we connect with it, we're absolutely in our flow. So even getting on this program with you, I was here on the chair going, oh my God, come on, ancestors, you know, my body's off the charts, and I'm going, but I'm making an instrument here. And so as soon as I talk to you, my body's at ease, and I'm in the flow. I'm the swan let down in the water, you know, no bother. But that moment before, none of my history, none of my childhood, and the parts of me that are terrified want me to do it. But I go, I love you, I'm holding you, we must live this life. And I'll do it knowing what you've been through. And I need you with me because you're informing me about my needs. We'll do this together, but we will create something now. No.
That's again, beautiful. I'm going to jump around a little bit. I'm going to do something very unprofessional.
Okay.
And my audience, my audience is probably saying, what's new? I didn't get a picture of you from the screen earlier. So if you don't mind,
okay.
let me get a picture of you. Thank you. That's very unprofessional. Nonetheless, well, it's very raw show. It is.
That's nice.
It is what it is at this point. Yeah. It is what it is. You've got this shaping what's troubling you into what's possible. This 4-week foundation program in needs-based empathy, and I love that needs-based empathy. What can you tell me about that?
So, Louis, it took me a long time to cultivate inside myself some kind of spaciousness with my own pain. And so I run short classes as well, 2-hour classes, but this is a longer program because I find that the longer people are with the material, the more they can remember it in their own bones. So I'm not teaching anything new. Marshall Rosenberg wasn't either. He said, I'm reminding you what you know how to do. Oh. So over these 4 weeks, through that sort of spaciousness, I bring people back to this knowing about their needs. So they, I'll bring subject matter about the origins of our pain, all that we've been through, how it lives through our bodies, the origins of our language, so the judgments inner and outer, and also the habitual behaviors that we have around living that way also. So it gives me these 4 weeks with people to sort of touch into all those areas. And then, in each class, I'm working empathically with what rises. So I do needs-based practices with people so they can get in touch with the felt sense of their needs, and the power that's in that to bring about in the present what it is they're longing for.
And again, this is going to be is this a group? Is this a Zoom? Is it? What?
Yeah, that's right. It's a group. This is what's so wonderful as well, because I bring some teaching, but what creates the sort of movement and growth is that other people are there sharing their stories. And I think we don't get enough of that. We don't get to hear what everyone's been through, what they're working with, and what they're wanting to bring about. So it helps. Obviously, everything I do is through this art of vulnerability. And when we see other people showing up and being wholehearted, it gives us permission to do the same and just be real. So that's what's so lovely for them, I think, but especially for me, to be in that lovely sort of creative center of vulnerability where we can be ourselves and begin to come home to what matters to us.
And again, and I love how you say that about the art of vulnerability, and you do coaching also with people.
That's right. One-to-one coaching.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
Say a bit about that.
Yeah.
So I made a little poster for it recently to hopefully getting out here in my locality as well, a bit of a leaflet. But the way I describe it is to support people in difficult life transitions. So it might be people wanting to move forward in their life and feeling somehow limited by their childhood events. So, or it could be present events, loss and grief, divorce, separation. It could be, children leaving home. So any kind of life transition that, increases our pain levels, to support people in those moments with presence with that pain, because the pain it's growth pains, it's our life wanting to continue to unfold, even though these events are happening around us.
And again, you've got to deal with it. I mean, again, you're trying to ignore it. My line that I always use, you deal with, I'm going to do air quotes, no one's going to see, you deal with it, whatever it is, or it will deal with you. And too often it deals with people because they don't want to deal with, recognize whatever, I had a perfect upbringing and nothing, this and, and it's, and that's generally not, I don't want to say that's never happens, but issues, we grow up with, there's issues.
That's right. So Louis, you said deal with it.
Yeah.
Deal with it or it deals with you. Yes. That is certainly my life experience. And where I didn't deal with it, I repeated patterns that weren't good for me, that weren't bringing me to life, that were increasing pain levels. So I don't wave it. I don't do it like wave a finger. If you don't, you'll be in more pain. I don't know that that's the truth for anybody else. It is my experience. And I hate to call pain a gift.
Well, I go ahead. Yeah.
However,
yeah.
My marriage ended about 6 years ago now, and I'm still in agony. I loved this man so much. And my 2 doggies, I lost them too. It still remains as this great teacher of what I know love to be. This loss is this great teacher. And I wake to the pain and to knowing that I know what love is, that I know how to love. I mightn't have been brilliant, you know what I mean? But I do know how. And it's this constant reminder. So I with grief, I incorporate it into who I am. It's woken up my bullshit barometer as well. I tell you what, people mess with me less now. I'm going, I've been through some shit. I've been on my hands and knees. Don't mess with me. So I'm more awake. This great gift of grief and pain, if we will work with it, is this awakeness to our present, to don't mess with me. There's something special going on in here. I intend to bring it, a lot. So for me, a lot of gifts. I'm not saying they're gifts that come real easy, No,
but I do understand what I do understand what you're saying. I certainly didn't feel that the abuse to me was a gift, but it certainly gave me greater understanding about things as I got older, and helped explain some of my, behaviors, as I said, when I was a teenager and young adult. Again, it's too bad it has to be that way. Yet it is what it is.
That's right. Louis, that's exactly I say it nearly on every time I post something. I'm just so sorry, it is what it is. But it's not new to us. It's been going on for centuries. So lineage after lineage. So if we can be the ones that says, I see it, I feel it, I wish it wasn't so. I had imagined a life for myself without stuff like that.
Sure.
If we can somehow work with it somehow, to not repeat it, but also to let our light out somehow, our truth, it's a great gift. But, it's a bit selfish, Louis, actually. When I go to my grave, Actually, I'll be burned, but I'll be going, guys.
You and I both. Yeah.
Nobody can point to me and say she didn't try or she didn't do her best to get her essence out. I'll go, I did everything. I made decisions. I put boundaries down. You know, I embraced the difficult bits with as much love as I could do, you know. So a lot of this for me is selfish because I want my death to not be full of regrets, but to go, well, I had this one life. And so I don't know what my death's going to be like, of course, but I hope it brings a bit of ease to it to go, Claire, Jesus, you certainly gave it 100%, you know?
Do you want off the wall question? You're going to be cremated. What about the ashes?
Well, I'm really clear about it, Louis. I'm not interested in a funeral.
Yeah.
It's unlikely I'll attend funerals in my family circle. So I'd love, and I've already spoken to one very beautiful friend. I said, look, would you be with me while I'm dying? Just, you know, help me across this goddamn threshold.
Yeah.
It's not going to be easy. Be with me. And then once my soul has left my body, seemingly it takes 3 days, burn me. And then take my ashes. So I've got a place where I spread my dog's ashes here in the locality. And I just want to be with my dog. 100%.
Again, I've got a couple off the wall, but I feel
great, Louis.
I feel that I believe, I choose to believe, I'm faithful, whatever, that when I die, I'll be with the animals, all the different, the rabbits, the dogs, the cats, and that gives me great hope, great faith in that. Do you feel that way also?
Oh, 100%. I'm already there, Louis. Now, I studied, I don't know if you heard of Anna Breitenbach. She's an interspecies communicator, absolutely incredible. So I trained in her methods. I went to Scotland. I saw her video and I went, that's it. I'm born for that as well. Off I go. I'm always chucking, none left, chucking money at stuff to help me grow, you know. And in that training, I've already met Badger, my little terrier who's gone across. And this was one piece of work. And so we were told, look, we're going to do a piece of work now with a pet of yours that has passed on. So I sat quietly and we did our piece of work and Badger just came rushing in. She was white, this white light. And I was just, of course, streaming, crying. But not only did she come in, she came with my ex-husband, Jerry. Now he's alive. But I think for her, it must have been, she said, Claire, I can come to you, but we were 3. I'm bringing in Jerry's spirit too, you know. So it was so beautiful. And when I spoke to the teacher, I said, what the hell just happened, you know? And she said, Claire, Badger's been waiting for you to talk to her. And remember, anytime you can call on her, and I do regularly when I'm in pain, I go, Badger, any chance you could have come? But she said, Claire, she's there to really, again, support your life. So, you know, reach for her. She's somewhere where she can really have help to you now. So I'm already with them.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I know when I had a lot of rescue rabbits over the years, and when that died, I was very, very, and I will say, I'm sure clinically depressed after this rabbit died, and I was having a difficult time pulling out of that.
Yes.
Again, I'll call it deep sadness. And I felt like I was getting into a really dark place, to be honest. Yes. And it was funny because I found a song, and one of the lines was, you know, where do they go? The silver rabbits, they go to a place that only they know. And then it was, I believe, in Russian and Bulgarian. I had a friend of mine in Bulgaria help translate a couple of the lines where they dance. So after that, I would sing those lines over, and I'd listen to that song over and over, and I would project to that rabbit to make sure you come find me and take me to the place that only you know. And it's just interesting to me how that pulled me out of,
you know, Louis, we can't prove any of this, you know what we're talking about now. But what I would say is, certainly I'm on a path of honoring intuition, introverted empathic intuition. and I don't need to explain it to anybody. I don't need to apologize for it anymore. If nobody wants to hear this aspect of me, that's fine. I'm not bothered, but I'll continue. And I just can imagine I'm from a whole heritage of Irish people that were naturally in that dance with the natural world and with the creatures, no separation, you know. So I just think we're lucky to be part of the sort of the unveiling of that in a way, begin to touch into the truth of that. You know?
Wow, that's absolutely beautiful. I missed the idea at the top of the hour. You're listening to the Louis B. Free Radio Show, Brainford from the Heartland, copyright B. Free Radio Limited 2022, produced by Love Ms. Moneyface in cooperation with White Rabbit Productions. And I'm talking with Clare O'Sullivan. Clare, you are amazing. I am so glad that we connected.
Me too.
And I would love to have the opportunity to talk more with you.
Absolutely.
And I would urge people to go to your website, senseoflife.co.uk, senseoflife.co.uk. We've got the links up at louisfreeshow.com and wfmj.com, etc. Just go directly to it. You're amazing. I think about how we connected through the Tara Shannon and some of the things. It's the way it's interesting, right? I mean, and here we are.
Yeah. What we can do now over the internet, we've got to grasp it, haven't we? When you asked me, I just said, well, you can't say no to that, you know.
We could, but it is how connected, and things that are, it's meant to be, but the things that unfold in our lives.
Well, that's right. And without the internet, I wouldn't know about you probably, or
likewise.
Tara.
Yeah.
So
I would
it is
know
a
about
gift.
Tara also.
Yeah. So I think it is a gift to introverts in these times for us to really stand our ground and come out.
Yeah. Well, again, you know, I understand the downside. There's downsides to a lot of things depending on how it's used. I get that with young kids that are always looking down at their phone and don't have their relationships seem to be more online than interacting with, you know, I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about people texting while driving and all the, you know, the accidents that happen because of that. Yet there's good stuff too, just because.
That's right. I think as a race, we haven't matured yet with how to use it, you know. Yeah. That's going to take some time.
Yeah, I'm not sure on the race maturing, but some,
in any way.
I'm not. I don't know if we're devolving, evolving. I don't know. I don't know.
I hope not.
I don't know. But I have to tell you, I'm thrilled to have been able to do this with you, and I hope we could do it again. You're incredible.
No, thanks so much. It was just lovely to meet you. I've had a ball.
As have I, with all my wackiness. So
yes, thank you.
Senseoflife.co.uk. Clare O'Sullivan, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
How wonderful, folks. And again, it'll be available in podcast a little bit later and YouTube also. Clare, thanks so much.
Okay.
I'll